So what comes in an odd box like this from China? Well, I tell you what, stick with me and I'll share it with you. So let's jump into this together. Welcome to this episode of DIY3DTech.com. In this episode, I am going to unbox this and show you how to install a new CO2 laser tube in your K40 eBay laser. Yes, sirree do Bob. That's what we're going to do today, and that's what's in this box. So let's go ahead and get this open, take a look at it. Got my fingers crossed. Woo, purdy. So here's our brand new CO2, 40 watt CO2 laser tube. Came in, looks like it's in good shape. You don't know till you pump water through it. So again, fingers crossed. I don't hear any rattles or anything like that in this guy. So what we're going to do first, though, before we finish taking it out of the safety of this box, is we're going to go over there to the CO2 laser and actually talk about removing the old tube. So I'll meet you over at the CO2 laser. Okay, so before you get started, one of the things you want to do is make sure the unit is unplugged. I've unplugged it. I've actually flipped it around, so I've had to unhook all the stuff, including the ground over here, to turn it around. So one of the first things, safety-wise, that I do before replacing anything dealing with high voltage is I make sure that the tube itself is discharged. This comes from my old days of working on TV CRTs. You definitely, before you messed around with the flyback, wanted to make sure it was discharged. Now, for safety reasons, I've already double-checked that here, and this is. And to do that, what I did is I removed this little silicone rubber cap, which they had put over the anode there, if you will. And then what I did is I took a insulated screwdriver with an alligator clip. Now, this is hooked to the ground wire around, get this around the back, where that normally would hook here. That goes to an earth and ground. And basically, while holding this, you just want to touch this, the anode, just to make sure that this is discharged, and it is. So we're actually good to go to proceed. Now, with the safety note out of the way, one of the things that I did do is pop this cover off. It has a little lever here that you pull back, and it pops it off. My other one doesn't have this lever. Yours may or may not, but it just makes this whole thing a lot easier. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is when I take this out, I'm going to take the tubes out with it, and then I'll put the tubes back on the bench and then rethread the tubes back in. I just feel that's a little bit safer. Now, one of the things we're going to need to do, there's zip strips holding the anode and the cathode in place. I'm going to go ahead, just use snippers to remove the zip strips like this. Now, the posts here is actually just metal posts. And this anode and the cathode are really just wrapped around these posts, then covered in basically a silicone adhesive. So it basically just, pops off there, so nothing big. So with this, the anode and the cathode are really just wrapped around these metal studs on each end, and it basically, you can just pull up. Now there should be some high voltage silicon cement on here, so there'll be a little bit of resistance, but you can pop these right up. And then again, these silicone covers just really pull right off. Okay, now I've removed both the anode and the cathode. It's time to take the tube out. Now, this particular unit is held in with a couple Phillips head screws on the clamps. So what I'm going to do is just use a regular Phillips screwdriver to remove those. Now, there's holes that are placed inside here so you can get at it through the cover as well as over here. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take these out. All right, the screws on those were quite a bit longer than I anticipated, so you can kind of see here, they are pretty long. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply safely lift the tube out. It might be a little bit sticky from being in here for so long. And These actually don't have any type of felt or rubber on it, so this should come out pretty easy. There's still a little bit of water in the tube, so we just want to be careful removing the tube. And then, like I say, I'm going to pull these hoses out because I'm also going to replace the hoses on the new one as we spill water on the floor, but that's okay, it's a shop floor. So, all right, the old tube's out, so I'm going to go back over to the bench where I have the other one. So let's head back over there. Okay, we got the new tubes put on each end. Now this, I have to warn you, is probably one of the tougher parts of the whole process of changing this tube is getting these on. You have to be super careful because if you're not, you'll obviously break the glass connectors on each end. It is very difficult to get these on. They go on very tight. Also, these are silicone, so heating them up really doesn't work. The trick that I use to get these on is I use a water-based lubricant. Do not use an oil-based lubricant on these because it will react with the silicone and that will break down over time. Now with this, basically you can use, like glycol-based solution, like dish soap or something like that, high-density laundry detergent, that kind of stuff. Don't use a lot, just enough to get it on because, again, we're going to be putting distilled water in here and we don't want any type of bubble. So even if you can just get like straight glycerin, that's the way to go, and just enough to kind of wet it around each ring and push it on very slowly. All right, with that PSA out of the way, let's go ahead and head back over to the laser and put this bad boy in. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to do before I put this in, and I'll run an overlay in the corner, is I want to clean these off. Now, as you recall, when I took this off, it had high voltage silicone cement on here to insulate this, and then, typically it's just silicone adhesive cement. So what I did is I'm going to take a torch, I'm going to burn the silicone off, I'm going to take some sandpaper and clean this up, and then I'm going to take some alcohol and then I'm going to wipe this off. And I'm going to do this for both the anode and the cathode, so I know I'm going to make good contact when I go to wrap this back around the post on the new tube. All right, now that I got the wires cleaned off, I did take the opportunity to clean out this bay in general. After, I don't know, it's 3-4 years, it's collected a lot of dust and other crap, so I've just cleaned it out, made sure it's all dry. Also, in the bottom, mine has these little rubber feet. They've gotten kind of hard over time, but I'm going to reuse them. They should be fine. That go in the bottom. I want to make sure that those are placed well. And now with this all set, I'm going to go ahead and sight the tube. Now, be sure, if you look at the ends, make sure the mirror is going that way. So at least on mine, there's no arrow that says, hey, this is the right way. So the mirror goes, obviously, to that mirror. So I'm going to set the tube in now. All right, so I've set the tube in place. Nothing too sexy about setting it in place. You want to make sure, note the space over here towards the first mirror. You want to give it enough room so you can adjust that mirror. And what I'm going to do is, you saw how I took these off, so I'm going to just go off camera. I'm not going to waste your time. These are going to go on exactly the same way. When you put these on, you just want to snug them. Don't make them real tight. You don't want to take a chance of cracking or breaking the glass. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this down, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to talk about attaching the wires. So let me go ahead and put these on. Okay, so here we are. We've reconnected these. Now, one of the things I want to mention, I should have mentioned it earlier, you want to put these on both uniformly. In other words, you don't want to over-tighten one side than the other side. So anyways, yeah, just be aware of that. And again, as I mentioned before, this section and the previous section, don't over-tighten these. They just need to be loosely snug so that it holds the tube in place. Now, as you can see, I've got the wires connected. Wire connection is really simple. You just wrap it around the terminal. I'll do overlays of the anode and cathode up here so you can see, again, nothing too spectacular there. Now, what I did is I used high-grade marine silicone to reuse these two caps. They're fine. Basically what I did is I shoot some silicone inside here from the tube and then just put it on. Now remember, this is a high voltage tube, so again, if you've cleaned the contacts and wrapped this around, the voltage will find no problem in making it to the tube. You don't want to solder this or do anything crazy like that because you could damage the tube by heating up the ends. So again, that's why it's only wire wrapped down there. So anyways, you've now changed a CO2 laser tube. Now the next step normally would be to run water through this and make sure it all works, and I'm going to do that. But I'm going to do that off camera because to do that I got to reverse all this and I won't be able to film it. But again, that's what you need to do before you actually use the tube. And then what you want to do is, after you know it's good, you got water running, you want to do some test fires. Remember, you're going to have to realign everything with the new tube, so you have to do new mirror alignment. But that's about it. Pretty simple. I'll have some links to this tube and other things down below. So if you're looking to replace your CO2 laser tube, this is how you do it. So anyways, hopefully this helped. If it did, big thumbs up. Swag Shop up there, like button down there, hint hint, and subscribe down over there. Do a lot of videos on this. Cheers and catch you in the next one.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel.